Happy Friday afternoon. Super excited to be here today. We've got another amazing guest speaker from Empower. I'm going to go ahead and bring her in. I know you guys are going to be taking a lot of notes just from my pre-interview with her. So let's bring her in. Welcome, Dr. Jennie, to our big helper / Empower collaboration.
I love it. Love it.
Oh, so I've been really looking forward to having you on the show today because one, we're going to be talking about teenagers, right?
Yeah. God love them. God love them.
We're going to be talking about literacy and just, basically learning environment and, some other hot topics. Guys, she and I have been kind of just chatting back and forth for 10 minutes or so. And I already have a page of notes just from our pre-show conversation. So a couple things you need to know about her. Lots of experience, high school, middle school, English teacher. Your background primarily is in literacy, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yep. My PhD is in language and literacy acquisition. So, yep.
Also add ASU professor to that, to the list of skills and things that she brings to the table today. So what you need to know is she's the woman. She knows what she's doing, and she's here to share some of this knowledge with parents that, which, by the way, you also have some children.
I do. I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old boys.
So all this high school and middle school, is that helping you?
No. Like we did double-digit math the other day, which I'm a literacy person, so math is already not a strong suit. And we had to carry a 1, and he was like, "Why am I carrying the 1?" And I'm like, because you carry the 1. Because you do. I don't know why you carry the 1.
So you even find yourself learning new skills.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been a professor at ASU for 11 years. I have been coaching teachers. I've been in 125 schools in the Phoenix metropolitan area since I started as a professor. And I mean, it's all I do is work with teachers and coach teachers and provide strategies and resources and, help with planning and help with assignments and help with assessment. And then I get my own kids and I'm like, what? I'm sorry, what am I supposed to do here?
I love these behind the scene moments with all of these Empower consultants because it just makes the normal person.
I get it.
Makes me feel so much better. So one of the things that Jennie and I were talking about before we jumped live with everybody is, so here in our house, we have 2 official teenagers, almost 3. 12, almost 13, 15, and 18. So middle school and high school. And she said, Christy, you cannot expect your kids to learn. You can't recreate their classroom environment in, my kitchen or my living room. Could you tell us about that? Because I kind of felt like I needed to recreate school here at home.
You don't. I mean, you do. It is important to have a designated space in your house, and we can talk about that in a minute. But adolescents in particular, there's a lot of research around this concept of unschooling. And students who have a major shift in the way that they go to school go through a process of unschooling. And that can take anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. And that unschooling process, the brain of the adolescent literally shuts down and is like, I need to sleep. I need to reset. They may be laying on the couch all day and watching TV. They may be playing MLB on their Switch. They may be sleeping until noon. Whatever it is, they're going through a process right now of unschooling, and it's completely normal. It is something that you could expect them to do. Their lives have been uprooted, right? And you said you have an 18-year-old. Is he or she a senior?
Yeah, that's like a big, prom, and that was like,
oh my gosh, it's such a bummer. So it's okay to let your kiddos go through this process of unschooling. Look, the teachers don't have that choice of taking 3 weeks off and saying, I'm just not going to do any school for 3 weeks, right? So they have to give you that information that is those online classroom assignments or their Zoom calls or whatever it is that they're doing. But they're not providing your student with so much work every day that they won't be able to catch up if they take a little break and take some time off, honestly. And the other thing is, your students, your kiddos, they need that time to decompress because their brains have literally not developed between the ages of 12 and 19 to the point where they can truly process learning in an environment that is outside of school. It is all they have ever known. Learning for them that is not an environmental learning, like learning how to play basketball, but learning and schooling for them has always taken place in a schooling setting. And that is not what their life looks like right now. So you have to give them a little bit of grace and give them a little bit of transition time so that they know that it's okay. And they will naturally, and this will blow your mind the first time it happens, they will naturally get curious. They really will naturally get curious. And you'll see them on their phones researching things that they're interested in. And that's when you pop in, and that's when you start, not necessarily hounding them, but saying, oh, what are you looking at? What are you researching? What are you interested in? And then you can build from there and plan from there how to kind of implement some of the things the teachers might be asking them to do in something that they enjoy.
Okay. So yeah, I feel like you literally were spying on my house. We have been sleeping till noon, not me, right? But like, so Jennie, here's what I did, right? Like, again, not knowing what to do. I'm like, I'm going to take what I do in my life and I'm going to make it happen. And you just said, my kids have never learned to learn from home, right? Basically. So I didn't think about that. Legitimately, I've never thought about that. And so here I just said, okay, here's our plan. And we are going to, I gave the illusion of choice. I'm like, what time would you like to wake up? And we negotiated 9 o'clock. I said, okay, as long as you guys are up and ready for school by 9 o'clock. And we haven't hit that goal all week. It has been noon, it's been 11. And then there's this, this butting of heads because I feel this pressure that you've got to be learning. You got to be doing these things. Like, I want you to be successful in life, but right. I hear what you're telling me is expect some transition. I do understand this grieving part. Like, they miss their friends. Yes. They legitimately miss their friends. They miss that socialness. They're getting tired of me. I'm getting tired of them. They're getting tired of each other. Right. Like, it's, so you're saying, an adjustment period. So should we be flexible with, like, should I allow them to choose when they want to work on school and when they don't want to work on school? How much, I guess I'm afraid, how much is too much freedom?
No, that's a great question. So you are the parent, you are the grown up. So you can say, look, you guys, we have to do school at some point today. Okay. We have to do it. So, but you decide when. If you want to do it after dinner before you go to bed, that's fine. If you want to do it first thing when you wake up and get it over with, that's fine. As long as whatever it is they're being asked to do ultimately takes place at some point, even if it's a week from now, even if it's 2 weeks from now. Some of them are still in the process of unschooling. Some of them are coming out of it because we're just about at the 3-week mark right now. So, but given that choice, I mean, does it really matter when they do it, as long as it's getting done? I mean, like, think about what you're assessing here. What are we assessing? What's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is that they do their schoolwork. So if that's the ultimate goal, it's not that they do their schoolwork by noon. That's not the goal. The goal is that they do their schoolwork by this time, by the end of the day, or by the time they go to bed at night.
Okay. And ideally, hopefully there's less, like I said, less butting heads, right? Like, especially in confined space. So one of our viewers, Monica Mojica, she is in New Mexico. Absolutely adore her. She says, my son is an only child. Should I push Zoom time with friends because he's kind of driving me bananas?
Oh my gosh. So speaking of, my 5-year-old is here driving me bananas right now. Can you go ask Daddy? Thank you, sweetheart. Sorry, you guys.
It's real life.
And everything.
Real life.
Oh my gosh, this is real life, right? So Angry Birds is very important in his world right now. So we're using it as a tool for geometry and, measuring angles. Like I said, you have to use what they want. So yeah, an only child and Zooming with friends. So obviously the concept of Zoom has exploded as the pandemic has exploded, right? So the idea of the students being able to see each other and have those conversations is so, so, so important. And I 100% say, yes, do that. But also consider ways for them to see each other in person, as long as they're maintaining all of the government's guidelines. So do a drive-by, right? Call the mom of the friend and say, hey, we're going to drive by at noon. So-and-so is going to hang out the window and wave and say hi. If you guys can just be standing outside, that would be awesome. And do that so they can actually see each other and have that person-to-person interaction, because that is still so important, and it's not the same on Zoom.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I'm locked in my master bedroom, so they can't get in.
He's watching that down. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh.
That is totally fine. Do you want to take a minute, Jennie, and get him scared?
No, I'm good. I'm so sorry. This is the reality of life right now, right? Like there is no actual like working time and like time alone and privacy. Like he has no concern over the fact that I'm clearly doing a live interview right now. Mommy, yeah, mommy's working too. Can you believe it? I know, it's amazing. I'll be right out.
Our viewers will love you even more because they realize that you are, I mean, like, so this is one thing that Jennie and I were talking about too, is that we're kind of all forced into a situation that we've never been in before, right? I mean, even yourself with all of your credentials and all of your experience, you've got your little ones that you're now teaching and trying to work from home and they don't understand that concept, right? Like, so, okay, so let's talk about, let's talk about, you said something in my pre-interview with you. You talked about meaningful learning.
Yes.
Explain that to me because you hit on, don't be so much concerned about like the paperwork that's going in because that might not be meaningful learning. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it's really, really hard in online learning to do higher order critical thinking work, right? There's no real engagement between the teacher and the student, even through a Zoom call. There's not necessarily like any kind of evidence of application at a higher level of content standards. It's a lot of like, read this, answer the questions, I'll grade your questions. Even if in the middle school and high school level, it may be read this, write a response, and then I'll grade your writing. But there's those projects and those learning experiences that they have in school where they're applying what they're learning, that it's hard for that to happen online. So what I mean by meaningful learning is find out what your kids are into, right? I have a nephew, he's 14. He is 100% sure he's gonna play Major League Baseball. And he is obsessed with MLB The Show right now on whatever platform, loves it. So if I were looking for meaningful learning experiences for my nephew, I would say, let's start researching how the Major League Baseball came to be. Let's start researching some of the history of Major League Baseball. Let's start researching how the velocity of a pitch, and when that velocity of a pitch is hit, how far is it going to go based on this angle? And start using some of the things that they're really into to pull in the standards that they're missing at school. Now that takes a lot of work on your part, right? Like, I don't know velocity. I don't know how to do that. So in that case, reach out to the teachers, right? The teachers are sending, in the case of my 6-year-old, sending one reading thing a day, and he's reading this thing and answering 5 questions. Clearly that is not 6 hours of work that he would be doing in school. So I have not hesitated to reach out and email their teachers when I needed a little bit of help and I've needed a little bit more. I am not a first grade teacher, right? You are not a high school math teacher. You are not a high school English teacher. So there's no reason for you to be expected to know how to do those things. And that is okay. Moms, do you hear me? That is okay. It is okay that you don't know how to do algebra. I don't know how to do algebra. That is okay. That's why they have teachers who are available right now, right? The teachers are still doing their jobs. So if you email the teacher and said, hey, Gabe is really, really into baseball right now, and I would really like to find a way to kind of create some learning for him around that. Either they, A, already have resources that they can just send you, or B, they can guide you where to go to find the resources you need to make that meaningful learning, right? Because if you do that, the next time he plays that game, he's going to be thinking, oh man, I wonder if that velocity of that pitch was this because it went over the left field wall.
I hear you saying two things. One, and Nina, who was on a previous interview with us, she talked about being an advocate, right?
Yes.
So one, this is the time where as parents, we can be advocates. I know my teachers miss my students as much as my kids miss their teacher. And I absolutely get what you're saying. Like, let's engage our teachers. Let's be advocates and say, okay, like this is what we're into. What can I bring in? Because the other part is our teachers it's like an umbrella, right? Like they've got all of these students. So they're teaching basically under an umbrella to capture everybody. Mm-hmm. And it's our job as a parent, especially with these older kids. And when that curiosity kicks in, to say, okay, I'm going to advocate for my child. Let's make this a little bit more fun. I do think it will be more work, but it's also going to be more fun and create better memories.
And that's the thing is when you guys think back on what you learned about in high school, right? You literally, I guarantee you don't think about the multiple choice test that you took at the end of your American history class. Like you definitely don't. What you think about are like the big projects that you did. You think, Mama.
Hello there.
I'm so sorry. You think about, Benjamin, you need to go, please, buddy. Thank you. What you think about are like those big moments of things where you may have done a presentation, or you may have like taken those really important things that you had learned and applied them in a way. Maybe you wrote a paper to your senators or a letter to your senator, and then your senator wrote back, right? Like those kinds of big projects that like allow you to apply what you're learning in schools. If you can find a way to do that at home, the learning is so much more meaningful. And I think I want to add on to that too. Your kids how do you want your kids to look back at this time in their life, right? Like this is unprecedented. None of us, not my parents, not my grandparents, have ever lived through a pandemic like this that shut down the country. And our children are in a very unique position where they were school-aged children when this happened, right? This impacted them in a very different way. So when they look back on this and they're telling their children someday about what it was like to go through the pandemic, do you want them to say, your grandmother would not stop hounding me about doing schoolwork? She would not stop hounding me. She was on me every day, telling me I had to be up at 9 a.m., telling me I had to have the schedule, I had to do all this horrible work online. Or do you want them to say, you know what, it was pretty cool. I got to kind of do some stuff in a way that I had never done it before. I got to spend a lot of really chill time with my family. I got to, play board games and like do stuff that I wanted to do that I didn't have time to do because I was always in school. Like this is that thing, right? This is their 9/11 moment, right? Like we all remember where we were, if you're of a certain age, where you were and what you were doing when you heard about 9/11. And this is that moment for them. So how do you want them to reflect on it? How do you want them to tell this story? Here I am, this is my literacy professor, right? Like what's their narrative going to be in 15 years? What are they going to say about this?
It's, that's something that we probably as parents need to remind ourselves daily because there are certain stressors, right, that we can't escape, whether it's financial stress, it's
absolutely.
And so Jennie's here in Arizona with me. For us, it looks very different than for my friends in Maryland and Boston, right? Like they have the National Guard is there. It's very different. But one thing that's the same for us, and this is why we need to remember this as parents, is that every day it gets a little bit closer. You probably know someone now personally that has been affected by COVID-19, either financially or from a health standpoint. You probably also know somebody that has passed away because, of this virus. And just as we are experiencing this daily onslaught of bad news, like it's hard, right? So hard. Our kids are also experiencing it in their own way because they're missing out. Like, let's talk about, we just had a 15th birthday. And it was really hard. Wow. He was so excited because he had all these friends and all of these plans. And, now we weren't able to do that. So we said, we'll probably do some sort of summer something. But our kids are also getting this, this onslaught of change. Right. And I don't want them to remember me as the raging mom that like, I just need you to turn in your homework so that the teacher knows I'm doing my job.
Exactly. Like, and to be really honest, and maybe this is not the best thing to say as an educator, but some of that work it just isn't going to matter in the long run, right? Like your 18-year-old is going to graduate. He or she is going to move on with life, right? And these assignments are most important, I think, because they keep them connected, right? So these assignments that they're doing are not so much about standards like they would be in a classroom setting. They're more about connection. It's more about like, if I do this, I'm going to hear back from Mrs. So-and-so because she's going to grade this and I'm going to have that connection. And that's one of the things they keep saying is stay healthy, stay home, stay connected. And that homeschooling piece is a little piece of that staying connected with their school community.
I really love what Peggy said here in the comments. She says, I was thinking that earlier. I think a once a week journal entry could be something about how they're handling the pandemic. I know my children wrote travel journals back in the day, and they're so interesting to look back at. These kids may love to see how they felt and what they did during this time. And that's kind of been the other thing. So Sue mentioned this when we first started this journey of all of these interviews with these amazing educational consultants. She said, Christy, like, let's just keep their brains engaged.
Yeah.
Let's keep their brains engaged.
And what does that look like? What does that look like, right? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends.
Different for every child.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have 2 in 1st grade, another one in 2nd, another one in 3rd grade. So those 4 together, and then we have a 4th grader too. So actually those 5 together, I'm able to couple a lot of activities that are engaging for, for all of them from 1st to 4th grade. And it could be 15 minutes. Today we were playing one of the Spark Kit games where we were building tents. Yeah, we were building tents. It was actually really fun. We were building tents together, and I actually paired a 4th grader with a 1st grader, and it was really cool to see how they were doing that.
Look at you being a teacher.
Well, there was a little oh my gosh, at one point my daughter, who she actually she has a very high IQ, but she is emotionally and socially delayed.
Yeah.
And I thought she was going to take a minute to pick a card. And I was like,
but the Spark games that's the thing about them is like, my kids wake up in the morning and they're like, can we play Spark game today? Can we play adding by tens? And my 6-year-old is in a dual language program. And so one of the hardest parts for me as staying home mom is I don't speak Spanish. And his work comes to us in Spanish, and there are no English, directions. So I'm using Google Translate. I'm using Alexa. I'm trying to figure out what it's asking him to do. I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
You're fine. I was laughing at using Alexa to help you translate.
And the Spark games can easily be done in Spanish. Benjamin, please go out and see that.
Melissa says maybe even a video project. Actually, you know what, Melissa? Melissa was on our show a while back. That's a really great idea that, we document. Our kids are so, they're digital natives, right? They're so well versed at creating videos. If we created a weekly family video where maybe I had them prep ahead of time what they wanted to talk about, and then we shoot that would be hopefully engaging.
Yes. And that's the other thing about the video project is if you have found that they're interested in something that they can easily do some research on, in the immediate community, go for it. Maybe you've got a kiddo who's really interested in the COVID thing, and they want to see signs of how that looks in their neighborhood. So they take videos of the, chalk your walk that we're seeing, and the painted rocks that people are leaving, and the teddy bear hunt that people are doing in their window. And they take pictures of the park signs. And the park closures, that is a whole project that a student could do to do some research on what's actually happening now. That would be almost like having a journal that in 10, 15 years, they could rewatch that video.
Or even interview, back to what Monica was saying, should I push Zoom, having your child interview another family. How are you guys coping with this? What does it look different for you? Have you started any new traditions? There's a lot of opportunity for growth. So we talked about being flexible about what time they get up and when they do the work.
Yes.
Do they have to sit at the kitchen table?
No.
Where should we homeschool?
Okay, so that's a really great question. So, everybody's home setting is so different, right? So you're making me feel so much better right now. My 2-year-old just walked into it, and I'm like, where is the husband right now? After 1 hour of your time.
Texting him, where are you?
I'm literally texting him, trying not to look at my phone as I'm texting him, can you please come in here and get the kids? Gosh. Anyways, so no, they don't have to sit at the kitchen table, right? It can take place anywhere that you or they want it to be, but it should be a designated space in your house that becomes the space where they do school. So for us, it turned into the dining room table. We're very fortunate that we have a kitchenette area and a dining room. So we don't use the dining room. It's for formal meals. So I covered the whole table in black, butcher paper. It's all taped and covered. So if crayons happen or paints happen or whatever, nothing is happening to my furniture. And I ordered some really cheesy little punctuation signs and long vowel, short vowel signs on Amazon, stuck them on the wall. And that's our space. And the kids actually now call it the classroom. They have stopped calling it the living room. They call it the classroom now. So I think that helps, because when I say to them, hey, you guys, it's time to do school today, or hey, we're going to do school after lunch. When lunch ends, they immediately go to the space that we've designated in our house to do school. It's not like this, I don't know where to go, or where should I sit, or I don't want to sit by him, or whatever. And I actually use tape to draw spaces on the table as well. So it's this is your space, this is his space, don't cross it. So for us, that has worked extremely well. We designated that space, but I also understand that in different living settings, you may not have that kind of physical space, in which case it can take place absolutely anywhere. It can take place in the corner of a room where you have a chair and a small table. It can take place outside. It can take place at the kitchen table, like you said. My biggest suggestion is that it takes place in the same spot every day so that there is some routine to the way that they're doing school.
Yeah, I think, I don't remember who I was talking about this, but, one of the things that I'm noticing as an adult, okay, again, I feel like as an adult, I should have some of these skills, right? But I don't, before COVID-19, like I would go to my office having 10 kids with my nieces and nephew here, having 10 kids at home all the time. Like I don't work from home because it's just not feasible. They're like constantly knocking and, all this stuff. And, so I would step through my office door and that's like almost like a trigger, like it's go time, right? Like I step into a working person.
Yep.
I'm sitting in my master bedroom in a corner that I've created this makeshift desk, so I don't have that. Our kids don't have that. They're not stepping into a classroom and they know, okay, I'm in Miss Edwards' classroom and it's go time. So having a designated space in our house does make sense that
it helps that mindset.
Yeah, cue, it's learning time. But also the other thing that I'm noticing, and tell me what you think about this, is it's hard to know when school is over, like when work is over, when you don't leave home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so if you're measuring school on assignments, then, it would be easy to say, well, I've done all the work my teachers gave me, so I'm done. Right. And that's fine if that's the most that you think that your child can handle right now. But there's no reason to not also have them reading on the side, right? Whether it's fiction reading or nonfiction reading or whatever it is, there's no reason why they shouldn't be reading right now, whether it's on a Kindle on their phone or a Kindle on their iPad. It doesn't have to be a physical book. There's no reason why they couldn't be playing a problem solving or strategy game on their phone, like Luminosity, some of those like brain teaser games.
Yeah.
All of those kinds of things can count as school and as learning, and they can take place on the fly. So school should take place at a designated spot and during a certain amount of time, no matter what time of day that is. It doesn't have to be the designated time of day. But when that learning is over, learning doesn't have to stop, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of other things they can be doing to continue learning and growing without having to sit at the designated spot and doing that thing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
You're still lucky to have older kids too. My 6-year-old is just on the cusp of learning how to read, like really well. And so he can read to his younger brothers, but you have like kind of a built-in setting there where you could say to your 18-year-old, hey, dude, can you take 10 minutes and read this picture book to the younger kids? They would love it. And that's learning for both of them, right? Like that's time management for the 18-year-old, and that's a read aloud for the younger kids.
I am absolutely taking the approach from Mike Sissel that everybody leads. Everyone's a leader. So I've told my kids, in fact, I took a picture, I posted it on my Instagram story yesterday of our visual schedule from yesterday. Yesterday, I had a very, very busy day. And so it said, Anna, your buddy is, this person. Andrew, your buddy's this person. So all my big kids had a buddy, and with the expectation of you're going to, finish this part, right? Like, and I've told them, I said, on Thursdays, I'm very, very busy and my homeschooling time is very minimal. So I need you guys to be the leaders. I need you to help the family. This is, I'm hopefully in my head, what I really want to be happening is that they're learning some life skills, time management, leadership, and, responsibility. And also just that collaboration with helping a sibling and knowing that you're also helping the family, right? Like, because yes, I'm working from home, but I had legitimate meetings that I couldn't leave and go help them. So I do feel really blessed. The only part that is hard is getting them up in a schedule that matches my youngers. Because my youngers are like, they're at 5:30. They're like,
let's get school, it's 5 a.m.
My teenagers are like 12, dude.
I totally understand that. So we decided in our house, we do like a craft in the mornings.
Okay.
And then we wait to do school until after lunch because that's when my 2-year-old takes his nap. I have found for us that I was unable to do school with them while the 2-year-old was awake. There's too many, he's not self-sufficient at all. So That's what worked for us. And craft Sunday is literally like, look, here's this coloring book and some crayons, like color. It's fun. You know what I mean? And other days we've done like incredible things, like painted rocks and left a rock in every neighbor's yard. And it took us all morning. And that's just how it is some days. Like some days I'm like, I literally can do nothing more than give you a coloring book today. And some days I'm like, oh, we're going to nail this. Like yesterday we finger painted and made Easter baskets with our fingerprints and we put little eggs in them. I'm telling you, I'm going to be a first grade teacher before this is over.
So what I hear you saying, Jennie, is we need to also be flexible with ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. Doing school with my 2-year-old awake did not work for me. And in my first week of doing homeschooling, and I wrote a blog post about this for Empower, I went into it and I was like, I'm a college professor. Like my ego was like, woo, like I'm gonna be so good at this. Like this is my jam. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna be so good at this. And I made binders and every binder had like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. I put like papers from worksheets in everything. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so then we sat down on the first day and it was complete chaos. Like everyone was crying. Nobody knew what to do. I had totally overestimated what my 4-year-old can do and like underestimated what my 6-year-old could do. So he was frustrated and he was bored. And in the meantime, the 2-year-old is like in the refrigerator, like spraying whipped cream all over the place. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like how did I fail so miserably at this? And I realized that I had not put together a plan at all. I had no plan. I said, as long as they're working, they're doing school. And I needed to more intentionally plan the activities and the assignments that my students at my home were doing. I needed to plan. And that is something I preach to every single teacher that I coach. You cannot walk into your classroom 30 minutes before the bell rings, sit down and plan for your day. Like you are never going to have a successful day if you're planning 30 minutes before it starts. You have to have at least an idea of what the next week is going to look like. And I totally ignored my own advice. And so by taking a step back and saying, wow, I need to talk with Ben's teacher, talk with Andy's teacher, find out like what, how they're doing in school. Like,
oh no. Oh, you're back. You're back.
The point of what I'm saying is you have to have a plan, and that plan has to fit your family. For me, the binders and the like days of the week and all my worksheets that I had printed and it just didn't work. And what has worked for us is Spark. And the one-a-days have worked so well for us because they're so engaging. So
and it makes it manageable. I love that you shared that story because I think you know this, like much of us, we post our successes on social media, and it's rare for us to post those vulnerable moments of us failing. And sometimes we can start to think like, I'll be like, oh my gosh, Jennie has it all together. She makes homeschooling look so much, why am I failing at this? But in reality, we're just, I'm on like my 4th iteration of what this week looks like.
But you know what? Everyone in the world is like that right now. Like the grocery store, they're on the 4th iteration of what this week looks like. And the hospital, they're on their 4th iteration of what this, like the news, like everyone is on their 4th or 5th iteration of what this week looks like. So don't put that much pressure on yourself. No one has ever experienced anything like this before. No one. I have no experience in how to handle this. I have no experience in how to teach a 1st grader. None.
Oh, you've been so great. Okay, so as we wrap this up, what's the number one piece of advice you could give a parent who just feels like this is very hard and I'm just not sure if I'm cut out for this?
Okay, I want all of you to make eye contact with me right now. You are doing the best that you can. Everyone is doing the best they can. Everyone is doing the best they can. And if that means on a Tuesday morning, you wake up and say, I can't do this today, then not doing it that day is the best that you can do that day. And that is okay. Your kid's not doing school one day because you're overwhelmed is not going to change the outcome of their learning later on. Give yourself some grace, step back for a minute, take care of yourself. And that way you can take care of your kids, right? Everyone is just doing the best they can right now. Literally nobody knows what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I have a PhD in education and I don't know what I'm doing. Every day is different. So just remember that when you feel like you're struggling, so is someone else. Everyone's just doing the best that they can. That's my big advice.
I think that's exactly what we need to hear going into the weekend, because it is Friday, and I'm pretty stoked about that because there's no expectations for learning. I'm like, there's no expectations on myself, and there's no expectations from the school. But, at the end of the day, having some grace with ourselves, right? Like just realizing that just do the best that we can and be flexible enough. And I will say that, for everybody listening, whether you have kids at home or not, that plan right now as an adult, have a plan, right? Like, and you should, because what I'm finding is that that my friends and my clients that don't have plans, they're just kind of floating through their days. And that messes with your mindset too. Not having a plan, like at least like I'm going to do a couple loads of laundry today. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to like something so that you're just not floating through the day. And then the end of the day comes and you feel like, where did the day go? Yeah. And it just feels, you feel lost. Having the plan is so important.
Find a purpose.
Find a purpose. So thank you so much for coming on today and inspiring us and sharing your wins and your fails with us. It makes it a lot easier
right now. Lots more failures.
So we mentioned the Spark Kits and the One-A-Days. We're actually going to be giving away a Spark Kit today on our Big Helper page. So make sure you know that. And if you guys know a family that could benefit from these type of interviews, we're doing them Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 1:00. But also know that on empowerec.com, they have consultants like Jennie that are available to chat. So they have, over 40 consultants across the nation. And for people who just have questions and want to ask a teacher, want to ask a professor, right? Like real life.
Not about elementary school, but if you have a question, I'm your girl.
So I encourage you guys to check out empowerec.com. I'll make sure to put it in the comments and you can do that. And thank you again, Jennie, for joining us. We really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Christy.